Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the DOBR and Real-Time Data webinar. We're coming up on the end of the year, and most of us are starting to plan for 2018, or at least thinking about it. And to help facilitate that process, we thought we would go over some of the deal sourcing stats and trends that we are seeing in the market, as well as an overview of our newest enhancements to the SPS Portal. This will be a focused webinar around the Deal Origination Benchmark Report, or DOBR as we like to call it, that was released last month, as well as a launch of our real-time data and how that can help to manage and improve your deal sourcing and M&A business development process. My name is Catherine Daly, and I lead the communications department here at SPS, and I'm delighted to introduce my esteemed colleague, Brenden Gobell.
Hey, Catherine.
All right, before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Please be sure to mute your phone. We will have a Q&A session at the end. But if you would like to ask a question as we are going, that's fine. We can keep this as open or formal as you would like. The presentation can be viewed in full screen by selecting F11. This presentation will be recorded so that others can see it afterwards. And for the Q&A session, feel free to send questions along during the webinar. And to submit those questions, please use the chat option in the Join Me window. To send anonymous messages, simply select the @ icon next to your name and change it to Brenden Gobell. This will send the questions straight to us, and we can answer for the group. You can also follow up with either Brenden or myself after the webinar if you prefer. Any comments or questions before we begin? Great. Without further ado, here's Brenden.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks again to everyone who joined today. It's hard to believe that SPS originally started by tracking data entirely in Excel and only sponsor platforms at that. Our scope has steadily expanded to include add-ons and financings, along with strategic acquisitions, and most importantly, the intermediary professionals themselves. 2 years ago, we launched the SPS Portal, followed by the SPS mobile app just last year. There have been plenty of upgrades since, and there will certainly be many more, but our recent transition to real-time data is one of the most exciting, not because of what it is, but what comes next.
We're laying the foundation in advance of an even bigger enhancement that will bring the data straight to you. We're working to build out a suite of advanced alerts and notifications, all of which are under the full control of the user, and they can be created, modified, or removed directly from the SPS Portal dashboard. Did you flag a deal from a couple weeks ago and want to be informed if any professionals were added? Would you appreciate a weekly roundup of new deal source sections, including the contact information for professionals? Perhaps you want to know when deals from your log still haven't closed 6 or 9 months after originally seeing them, so you can circle back on any potential broken processes. Or do you simply want a recap of the week's deals that traded in your target? Whether you choose to push notifications on mobile or prefer a daily or weekly summary email, the information will be sent directly to you. We have plenty of ideas, but as always, the best tend to come from our clients and the deal sourcing community as a whole. So please, let us know which alerts or notifications would make your life easier and ultimately save you time in the day-to-day sourcing process.
Whether you're at the office or working out of pocket while on the road, the quarterly data lag is finally a thing of the past. When our research team confirms a deal has closed, whether it was last month, last week, or even yesterday, you will have access, and it has already been checked against your deal log. To help navigate this expanded access, we have improved the dashboard layout and added the ability to switch between quarters right up here at the top right. So by default, when you log in, it will still go to the most recently completed quarter, which is Q3 2017 for right now, but I can also now switch to Q4. So these are all the deals that have taken place in the last maybe month and couple weeks. You can still click on any of these tiles at the top, bring up the transactions, export this to Excel, maybe PDF to send around internally, or take a deep dive on any one of the deals to learn everything about it. Let's pick for same day, what kind of process, and then down at the bottom, look into who actually worked on that deal. The quickest way to find an easy answer if you're searching for, say, a deal, a firm, or professional, it's still the quick search here right up at the top. Just choose the category that you're looking for, and then enter in a keyword and hit search. To download the DOBR, the second part of our webinar today, this tile at the top right, all you have to do is select Download Now, and it will quickly be downloaded in the PDF format. The 2017 DOBR, this is the maybe 6th or 7th year that we've been putting out a report along these lines. There are a lot of changes. It's probably the biggest change that we've had year over year from one DOBR to the next. So first off, we have expanded the metrics quite a bit. We have removed the DOBR score that we used to include, at least for this year. It may come back in the future, but for now, we're taking it out. And then we've also added quite a few market coverage charts. Just trying to give you a bit more perspective and context as to what's going on year over year. On the second page, this is where you will see all the metrics, the stats, and you'll be able to compare yourself to your assigned peer group, and then also our full sponsor client base. Now, all of the stats that you see here at the client level are based on your specific target data set. So many of our clients have just one. For others, they might have a broad and a core. It's likely the core that's being used. We're also only talking about deals that went to sponsor buyers, and they had to have had a confirmed sell-side advisor. You can work through this row by row and column by column, looking at your firm-specific stat, and then comparing it in the standard median, max, min, and top quartile measurements for your peer group, and then again against the full sponsor sample. Let's work through these section by section, starting with the general market coverage here at the top. The first row should look fairly familiar. It's just your standard LTM market coverage. This is essentially the same number that you would have seen on your dashboard in that chart that we just showed at the end of Q2. We see that for our sample client here, 27.8, that's some great coverage, especially because compared to their peer group, they're above the median and they're pretty close to top quartile. So hopefully our sample client here keeps doing what it's doing. We then break out the total coverage between deals that were closed by boutique advisors and deals that were closed by most active advisors. This allows you to figure out which parts of your sourcing strategy have various types of opportunity for improvement in the year ahead. For almost every single one of our clients, the coverage for boutiques is lower than the coverage of most active, fairly self-explanatory. When you put this in context to what your peer group is doing, now you actually have some information, and it's not just a standalone data point. The last two rows in this section give insight as to how your coverage has been changing over time. This is a percent of a percent, just showing where your coverage was 6 months prior relative to now, and then also a year prior. The middle section is also brand new, the sell-side process metrics. So we recently rolled these out, I would say, at the firm level at the beginning of this year, and maybe at the deal level at the very end of last. So now what we have for the first time in the 2017 DOBR is you can compare your coverage of limited deals against everyone else. And this is not a typo. More than half of our clients were not able to see any of the limited deals in their focus target. They are, by definition, very difficult to see. They're often done by the boutique advisors, so there are more calls to make, but also a lot of opportunity. Then we have the broad deals. These would be the ones done by the most actives, most typically a lot of the names that you would recognize, and then the moderate, which are occasionally called the Goldilocks deals right there in the middle. The last section at the bottom, the macro metrics, these are not performance metrics. So that is why we've actually put the NAs in all the top quartile sections for these 4 rows. If they're not performance, you can't necessarily be in top quartile. The first row is just looking at how fragmented your target deal sizes are. We are simply taking the total number of deals and dividing it by the number of sell-side advisors within your deal size space. This allows you to know on an annual basis how many deals per advisor you can expect on average. Just to put this into context a bit more, this 256, we can compare it to the max and min across all of our clients. The 1.89 comes from a firm that's only looking at the 10 to 50 space. It is by far the most fragmented of all the different deal size ranges. And again, by 10 to 50, I mean 10 to 50 million in enterprise value. The 3.09 is from a completely different client. They only look at deals north of 250 million. There are fewer deals, but also fewer advisors in this space, and you can, as a result, get over 3 deals per relationship on an annual basis. Next row down, just counting the number of BD professionals, and just to head off the question at the pass there, it's not actually 0, it's probably about 0.48 or so, but we didn't want to represent half a person. We thought that may be a little silly. On average, it lines up with what most of you are likely hearing anecdotally. About half of all sponsors seem to have a dedicated BD professional, or at least somebody who spends the majority of their time to deal sourcing. I will say that all the top performers from the 2017 DOBR, for all the different peer groups, every single one does have a dedicated BD professional. Next row down, looking at the annual deal flow, and these are just from your specific log. Again, you can never see anybody else's deals. Nobody else can ever see yours, but we're just giving you some insight as to how your annual deal volume compares to that of your peer group, and then also all sponsors. Last but not least, we have the client target percent of total market, which I promise sounds far more complicated than it really is. We are just looking to quantify how sector focused or generalist you are as a firm. So if you were to imagine just taking all the deals in your size range that closed on an annual basis, and then we applied your industries of interest, the resulting percentage is what you see here. So 41% of all the deals based on the sample client's target are relevant for them. Because they're in that middle third, they're in the quasi-generalist. If they were, say, 20% or 30%, they'd be sector focused. If they were 70, 80, or 90%, they'd be in our generalist category. Next down, we have our standard market coverage chart. This is showing 2 years of history, a little bit more room to get some insight as to where the trends have been going, followed by our industry snapshot. So each bar's size is showing you the total number of deals that closed within that industry, and then the percentage at the top is saying of that specific industry's deals, how many you saw. Followed by, and by the way, I think somebody may not have mutes on their microphone, might just want to do that. The last chart that we have here is by deal location. So this is based on where the deal itself is located, but you can also pull this sort of information based on where the sell-side advisory firm or even their professionals are based. And all of these 3 charts, by the way, you can pull directly from the portal at any time whenever you are running a query.
Great, thank you, Brenden. So that will conclude that section, and we're going to start the Q&A. If you haven't done so already, feel free to submit your questions via the chat icon. And as I mentioned earlier, you can do that anonymously if you'd like, and there on the screen we'll explain that. Okay, looks like we have our first question. Sorry if you already covered this, but how many were in this year's DOBR compared to last year's? Okay, great question.
So yes, last year we had, well, just to back up a little bit, we've worked with well over 200 firms at this point. We have probably over 150, 150 sponsor logs, but in terms of those that actually qualify for the data standards we have when running the DOBR, it was 110 last year for the 2016, and it was 129 for this year's report, the 2017.
Great. Heard recently about an integration with Deal Cloud. Can you speak to that briefly? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we're really excited about the ongoing integration that we have with Deal Cloud. Up to this point, we were doing sort of an individual exercise on a per client basis, but we're moving towards having something that is actually officially built in, and you'd be able to query and access all the SPS data directly within the Deal Cloud instance. You would still have access to our portal, which will always have the most advanced features regarding our data, but it would be essentially just a seamless way to access our information and your existing CRM information all within the Deal Cloud platform.
Okay. Okay, another question. Will one user be able to create alerts and notifications for another at the same firm?
Yes, absolutely. We think that would save a lot of people some time. So you can imagine where perhaps there's an analyst who's helping to set up these alerts and notifications for their various partners, or an admin doing much of the same, especially if you had somebody who's perhaps on the road all the time and they don't want to necessarily learn how the portal works in the browser version. It'd be great to have a point of contact who is very competent in the service, and they're able to really help just facilitate engagement for each client. So absolutely, you'd be able to make alerts and perhaps even potentially searches for other users besides yourself.
Okay. Okay. So what area or metrics in the DOBR help identify what change going forward rather than just reviewing the previous year? Okay, great question.
Yeah, so this is a good one because it helps explain why we put out the DOBR in the first place. It's one meant to help give some insight as to just what's going on across the whole market, your specific peer group, how to create that, along with your firm's specific stats. And that's nice if you're looking back to see how things have been changing and progressing. You can perhaps use it in some of your LP reporting or even just those internal offsites at the end of the year. But it's also a way to look for opportunities going forward. So as we were running through that main page row by row, if you are frustrated with where the boutique coverage is, it is actually pretty easy to just go into the portal and find the deals you missed from those boutique advisors and follow up on them. If you want to spend more time with those moderate deals by that sell-side process, you think the limited, maybe not really worth the time, the broad you already know about, but you want to go for the that same Goldilocks zone, it is very easy to run a search for missed moderate deals in your target over any period of time. So we really see it as a two-part exercise, knowing where you are, but also using that to help steer where you want to go.
All right. I think that does it for questions. If we're done, if you think of anything else, feel free to give us a call or shoot an email. The contact details are on the screen. If you'd like more information on the DOBR, SPS released its annual article in PE Hub last month associated with the DOBR, and that will go into a lot more detail, including the updates made to this year's report. Also, quick note, Thursday marks a year of the source. That's our weekly blog focused exclusively on deal sourcing trends and analysis. This is a great milestone, so check it out, and if you like it, subscribe. Well, that does it for us, and thank you for joining us for the DOBR and real-time data webinar, and we'll talk to you again soon. Happy Thanksgiving.